All right. So today I'm going to talk about authentic leadership. My name is Catherine Novak, and this is for class LEAP 500, Introduction to Art Management and Leadership. When I thought about presenting what authentic leadership is, I thought about showing my own authentic self. And so I started with these photos. I am a traveler at heart, and so this is me in several different places. All right, so when I think of authentic leadership, I always think of the logos, pathos, and ethos. And with logos, I always think of nature and nurture. So where do my values come from? Where were they taught? Were they part of my environment, etc.? And we will talk about that more as we go on. So I live by the words lead by example. I am a true believer in that philosophy, and I think that that has a lot actually to do with these perspectives. Um, and when we talk about interpersonal, that's, self-awareness and looking within yourself. Intrapersonal is, being um, communicating with others, understanding how they might feel, or seeing their perspective in something. Developmental perspective is just the idea of human beings, and how we are constantly changing, and learning. So when we think about the two different approaches, the practical and theoretical, we want to attribute that to Bill. I always forget his name, so I'm going to use my little cheat sheet here. Bill George's practical approach. All right, so those two approaches talk about how authentic leaders show their purpose and their passion, their values, and again, that goes to that whole lead by example. Their behavior um, expresses this belief system. They are compassionate, self-discipline, and so that goes a lot into authentic leaders really doing things for the sake of doing them, um, doing it for themselves, that sort of thing. Um, and then building relationships and connections with people. And again, part of that interpersonal of like listening to those people and maybe learning something from them. So building off of those ideas, we talked about self-awareness. It's a huge part of authentic leadership. Rational transparency, balanced processing, and internalized moral perspective. So these are all parts of that authentic leadership theory. Um, as humans, we don't always do all of these things all the time, but these are what we're striving for. And then I also want to talk about self-regulation. This is a really cool website, so if you click on this to learn more about it, but I think self-regulation really goes into these four ideas, and being very self-aware and evaluating yourself constantly and asking yourself um, some of those hard questions. So I realize that inclusivity is one of its own theories, but I think it's important enough to talk about, in any theory, in anything we do. And really that goes into the idea that, these are all just theories and there is no one set way to be a leader. And so it's finding what works for you. Um, I attribute my style, if I have one, of leadership being lots of different pieces from different places. But these are just a few things that are important to me. Um, on the bottom right is actually an image that I made, from a picture of myself in my early 30s and then a recent picture in my early 40s. And it's something that I struggle with now, is ageism. I notice people have different expectations of me, because of my age. Sometimes they don't take me seriously because of my position in life. Um, and so that is something that I personally struggle with. So the theory of authentic leadership hasn't really been around for a long time. And when we talk about any of these theories, there isn't a whole lot of research, in any of them. Um, but this one kind of came out of researchers working on transformational leadership. Um, and it really came out of the destruction of 9/11 and all of these like corporate, um, large company, bailouts and things like that. And there was just a lot of mistrust in people, and we needed some honest people. And so authentic leadership came out of, um, what was working, how we could find honest leadership, um, and then growing on that, right? We knew what we needed, we just didn't know how to get it. All right, so next is ethos. And when talking about ethos for myself, as an educator, and someone who facilitates classes in art and design, um, I want people to know that I have a long history of education in educating others, that I went to school for art and design. And so that is my ethos. That's how you know I have authority, in talking about the things that I talk about. All right, so a strength, lots of pros and cons of any theory, any of these theories. Um, I mean, the obvious one with the authentic leadership is that idea of just trust of a good person, right? And again, you don't have to stick to just one theory. We're talking about how transformational, inclusive, and servant leadership and authentic leadership all are based on your values and being a good person. Um, Also, part of that ethos is, um, building that trust, and if I say it, then you know it's true. So then some weaknesses maybe of the theory. Again, I've mentioned it many times, there's little research. It's not widespread. It's not common enough to say, okay, well, we know this works, because we've seen it in companies and, in corporate situations and nonprofits and this and that 100 times, and it's always made really motivated, employees or followers or whatever you might want to call them. So there's just not that statistical backup, that people need, um, for this type of thing, to be widely accepted. And then a personal one for myself is something that I really think about is how far can you go with being authentic? While you want others to know the real you, there is a limit to what is ethical to share and there is a concern for how you'll be seen after something you might share. Um, and so I struggle with my students that I work with quite often about boundaries, and I've had to kind of reevaluate those boundaries. And so this was kind of a big one for me that I see um, as a weakness, maybe, for authentic leadership. All right, so pathos, it's all about the emotion, right? It's all about that personal, getting to know people as people. Um, and so these are just some of the things that I'm interested in. I work with puppeteers. I really enjoy making puppet theaters and puppets. I also refurbish furniture. I enjoy making miniatures. And so part of that I or that philosophy of being an authentic leadership is sharing part of yourself, making sure that you are seeming human um, to another human, and not just a robot that thinks about numbers and the main goal, right? Um, so then next, I'm going to talk about a couple of examples that I kind of think of when thinking about authentic leadership, and how I go about doing that. And so one is an example in my job at the Rocky Mountain College of Art and Design as a tutor. I'm always honest about the school and the curriculum and the staff. If there's an issue or something that I don't agree with, I don't sugarcoat anything. I try and be as honest as possible about those things going on and really hearing the students. But at the same time, I also want to play devil's advocate and hopefully give those students who are frustrated the point of view of the other person, maybe what the faculty or staff is thinking, so that hopefully they can understand better um, about what's going on. Um, I want to advocate for both sides, but it's really important for me for a student to advocate for themselves. And so a part of that is if I see something or especially agree with a student that something is wrong, I'm going to say, no, say that it's wrong. And then the other part of that for me too is that when I'm working at the Puppet Palooza with all age groups, um, I supply makers with all of the supplies and materials to make their own puppets. And I try very hard not to get too involved with their own creativity of their puppet. They are kind of making their own new best friend, and I don't want to um, put anything in their heads that maybe wasn't there already. Um, I try not to intervene unless it's like a safety issue or I can see some like really true frustration. I show plenty of examples. I give lots of materials so that they can, shape, texture, whatever, that they can just go wild and make their own thing because there really is no limit to what a puppet can look like. All right, so I just want to say thank you and leave you with a few more images. And I hope that you learned a little bit more about what authentic leadership is and hopefully can practice some of the things that you took from it in your own roles in life. Thank you.